Hello, shalom, shalom, welcome. My name is Crystal. Thanks for watching. So in today's video, I want to kind of incorporate two of my worlds. So I am a teacher. I teach middle school literacy, a class called Literacy Support, where we work on reading, essentially. So I'm able to work with the students in small groups at their reading level and help them get better at reading. But there is a concept in my teaching world that I've realized also applies to my biblical studies and my faith world. And that's what I want to talk about today. So, to help explain this, I'm going to try to fill out this chart for you. So let's jump right in. So the concept that I use all the time in teaching is called language domains. There are 4 main language domains, and we put them into 2 categories. So what are the language domains? So glad you asked. Okay, the first one is reading. Next one, writing, speaking, and listening. So in my teaching world, the idea is to give students as many opportunities to operate and learn in these domains as possible. We don't want to keep them in just one. We want to give them a variety of activities and opportunities to engage with the content so that they can better learn it. So today, I want to tie this into Bible study because I've been studying the Bible a long time. Sometimes I do it well, sometimes I don't do it well. But what I've found works the best is typically the simplest strategies, and they usually fall within one of these 4 categories or 4 domains. That reminds me though, I also mentioned there are 2 different categories. So let's find, yes, so the reading and listening domains fall into the input category, and that refers to the input of information. While the writing and speaking domains fall into the output of learning. Both are necessary for learning. Input of information, that's like the receiving of the information. So in our example today, that would be reading the Bible, like the scriptures, receiving the scriptures. And then output is how we process it and then regurgitate or retell it or show that we understand what we have received. So next, I'm going to go through each of the 4 domains, talk about different specific examples of how we can apply this to our Bible study. And then at the very end of the video, I want to give you 2 separate lesson plans that you can implement to any passage in the Bible. Stick around if you're interested in that. And also, if you're enjoying this, feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. And yeah, enough of that. Let's jump into it. First, let's talk about reading. So let me see if I can zoom this in. Oh, that's out. Zooming in. Okay, reading. This one's easy. This is probably what we do most of, but read the Bible. But instead of just writing, read the Bible, I want to kind of talk about 2 different ways we can read the Bible. So the first way we can read the Bible is to read it. Oh, I put an F instead of an R. I'll just X that out. Read slowly. Kind of like what it sounds. Read the text slowly, pause often, think about it, maybe one chapter a day, or even slower, one passage a day, and just really spend a lot of time with it. That would be reading slowly. The opposite of that is reading quickly. That would be like reading multiple chapters, not stopping often to think about it or look up questions or anything. Both have a place. Both have a place. And hopefully, if you are studying the Bible daily, you'll notice both in your life. So let's think about Genesis. So I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the story of Joseph spans about 20 chapters. Maybe it's 10, but I feel like it's 20. And so reading slowly would be like spending multiple days reading through each of the chapters, taking your time with it, digging deep, looking up words you don't know, doing word studies, stuff like that. Reading quickly, and obviously you're going to learn a lot. Reading quickly, though, can be beneficial because you're able to, in one sitting, see the beginning from the end. See the whole narrative. And yeah, that's just beneficial. And then this one is my favorite, so I'm going to put a little heart. I tell my students this all the time. Read and read again. So rereading. Read and read again. I think sometimes we assume we will understand something the first time we read it, but that's usually not the case. Our comprehension grows the more we read it, and so let's not be afraid to read again, okay? And then, I don't know where to put this, but I also want to make mention here the benefit of reading various translations. If you are familiar with the Bible, you probably know it was not written in English. And you probably also know there's a million translations out there. And so my favorite strategy is to read a variety of translations often. I think that is a pretty well-rounded approach because with translation comes translation bias, and there's different kinds like word for word or thought for that, and there's that whole thing, which is a whole nother conversation. But I think reading various translations is a good way to go, okay? All right, let's move on to the next one. Listening. And so the first way we can really listen is using the audio Bible. I love this one. So you're watching on YouTube right now. I'm a huge fan of YouTube, sometimes too much of a fan, and so something I've been doing recently is trying to replace YouTube with the audio Bible and just listening to it. Another way, very similar to the audio Bible except in person, you can listen to others read the Bible to you. Maybe you're in a family and you can read with your family, like have your children read it to you, or your partner, or your parent or grandparent. Read the Bible together. That would be considering listening, and that would be another way of accessing the content that's different from reading. A different skill set is necessary for listening than reading. And then there is this fun one in the middle that kind of marries reading and listening. And put it in a little cloud. But it is, we're super crooked. Reading out loud. So when you are the person reading out loud, maybe to your family, or even I read to myself all the time, just out loud. Sometimes out loud in a full voice, sometimes in a whisper. It helps me focus, but that's a different topic. But when you read out loud, you are accessing both domains at the same time, which is awesome. Okay, let's move on to the output domains. First up, we have writing, and this one is my favorite because oftentimes this step is where you will see where you do not understand the text, and then you can go back and learn. So one way to write is by writing summaries, and I have a whole video about this, so be sure to check that out. Writing summaries, writing a retelling, or a paraphrase. So the difference between the two. So let's think about the story of Jericho. A summary would be like, the people of Israel were commanded by God to walk around the city 6 times and not talk, and then on the 7th day they were walking around it 7 times and then shouted, and then the walls fell, and that. So a summary is more informational, while a retelling or a paraphrase might be more creative, more like a narrative, where you can kind of embellish it a little bit, not change the meaning or not change what actually happens, but kind of imagine yourself in there and how would you tell the story. Or like, this one is, people do this all the time when they teach children. So like a story, like a bedtime story, telling it. Okay. And then another way is questions and answers. So writing a question about the text is one way to write about your learning, and then answering that question. Both challenge you to engage with the text. Next, let's talk about speaking. Speaking and reading, that might be a little confusing. So reading out loud, you might assume that it is in the speaking domain, but it's actually not. So speaking is in your own words. So speaking would be like, instead of writing down the story, telling it to someone. Telling the story to someone, so verbally. Another way to speak would be like in the format of a teaching, or even like a prayer. You don't have to, you can practice speaking without another human. You can talk to God about his scriptures. You can tell him, okay? But verbally speaking, that's where that is. And so, And then there's also kind of a bit of a marriage between writing and speaking when you write and then speak. So maybe you want to retell the story to your child in your own words, and you would write it down first, and then you would speak it. So they kind of go hand in hand, or they can go hand in hand as well. Okay, so that is this, obviously. But now what can we do with this? How can we actually implement this into our Bible studies, and what's the point? What would be the benefit? The more variety we have with the text or with the content, and in our example, it's the scriptures, the better we'll be able to comprehend, the more we'll know about it, the deeper it'll sink into our mind and into our hearts. So before we go, I want to give you 2 lesson plans that you can apply to any passage. So let's do red. So 2 lesson plans. Okay, lesson plan number 1. Listen to a chapter in the Bible. maybe 2 chapters. So step 1 is listen to it, and listen without looking at the words, because that is another skill. Then write down everything you remember. And then step 3, go back and read the same chapter. So listen, write, and then read the Bible chapter. And then if you want to take it even one step further, edit or add to your writing. Like I mentioned before, writing is, I think, the best way to know or realize what you don't know. Try to write or tell the story, and you'll quickly find out what you don't remember or what you don't understand. And so then you go back, reread it, and then edit your writing. Okay, that's lesson plan number 1. Lesson plan number 2, step 1 is reading the chapter in 2 versions. Okay, so read the chapter in 2 versions. So we are reading and rereading, and we're reading it in a different version to hopefully broaden our understanding of the text. Okay, next, write down the passage in your own words. So retell the passage. So this could be a summary or it could be a narrative, but retelling the passage. And then step 3, I should have write it down. Okay. So this one's writing. And then step 3 is to go tell someone. Tell your roommate, tell your partner, your husband, your wife, your child, your neighbor. Okay? Go tell someone, or very least, record it on your phone. Okay, so those are 2 different lesson plans. You can apply this to any Bible passage. And yeah, if you're interested in trying these out, let me know which one you're going to try first. And yeah, if this video was interesting to you, please like, please share it, please subscribe. And what else? Is there anything else I have to say? Yeah, actually there is, because I forgot to mention it earlier. But if you can think of any other ways to read, write, speak, or listen during Bible study, if you have any other ideas, leave them in the comment. And yeah, we will see you, hear you, read your comments next time. Okay, bye.